So that was what led me into the spiritual realization, to answer the original question, of the importance of understanding our multidimensional and the true history of the earth. Everything has been hidden. Everything we've been taught and trained is a lie. And that's because the bad guys literally own the planet.
Welcome to Far Out with Faust, everybody. I am Faust Chicho, and today I'm excited and delighted to be joined by Robert Potter. Let me tell you about this extraordinary individual and what he has been up to. He's a world-renowned, real physical contactee of the Venusians and the Pleiadians. He shares his knowledge freely about travelers from these worlds. He's been having actual physical encounters with our ET brothers and sisters since he was 17. He's given seminars all over the world and appeared on numerous radio and TV shows, interviewed by countless magazines and newspapers. He's been at this for 45 years. He's been a messenger for the Venusian hierarchy of light, sharing messages of love and hope for the people of this planet for just as long. And if you're like me, as soon as you heard the word Venusian, you got excited. And so when I read about this man, I had to reach out to him, and he got back to me and we hit it off. So he also leads sacred site tours to South America, Bolivia, Peru, and Egypt, and Hawaii, to name a few. He's been working closely with the Venusians, and he says that their philosophies and technological advancement can surely serve to enlighten us towards an era of peace and prosperity for all. And the mission statement that I've gathered from diving into Rob's work is one of liberation, justice, equality, fraternity, and freedom from the tyranny that we see trying to engulf the world, particularly right now. There seems to be a very desperate attempt going on. Rob can be found across the circuit of festivals, podcasts, radio shows, and he's always sharing the developments and plans for the liberation of the planet given to him from the interdimensional Galactic Federation, Confederation of Light and Ascended Masters. So without further ado, let me introduce Robert Potter. Thank you for beaming in, brother. It's great to have you on the show.
Hey, thanks a lot, Faust. It was really an honor. And, I a lot of times when people ask me, I kind of give them the big download, and I kept throwing this stuff at you. And most people just go, the ship is listing, or the Windows page comes down and go TMI. And I'm trying to moderate my presentation now. There's a lot of things that are going to be happening very soon on our planet that are important for people to have a little bit of a background. And at this point, I've mentioned to you before, I'm sometimes considered the conspiracy theorist of the conspiracy theorists. Wow. Even many of them can't grasp or understand the simple reality of life in our solar system, and everyone's looking to the Pleiades and to Arcturus and Sirius, and this solar system is teeming with life. So, I'm nothing special. I'm a postman delivering a message, and as long as I maintain my vows to keep within the parameters that I'm told, there are certain things I'm not permitted to talk about. I really want to tell everything I can, but for certain, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to say political reasons and people's perceptions, I have to keep things secret. But I have a friend who's you're going to meet, and at some point bring him on. He lived on Venus for 2.5 months, and we're going to run through a whole bunch of stuff here today, and awesome. Hopefully in the future.
Sounds great, brother. Yeah, I mean, and the friend that Rob is referring to is Raymond Keller, who wrote a trilogy of books, which we're going to talk about a little later. We're going to try to get to
now.
9 books now. That's right, 9 books. My God, I have I love reading. Thankfully, catching up to do. But so, how did this? People are probably wondering how that. Clearly, you are very much, this has become your world in a lot of ways, and I'm sure it took a lifetime to get to where you are. So. I guess, and the thing I was curious about as well is, like you just said, people are often at first drawn to the Pleiades and to Arcturus and to Sirius and towards some of the races that we know were involved in humanity's design and all that, but you don't often hear people talking about the Venetians. And I mean, the closest thing I could say I heard, like I was telling you when we talked on the phone, is, the Hathors always claimed that they lived on Venus at some point, and then they're represented by the cat, by the cat in Egypt, that cat figure that's kind of cute and feminine looking.
Not really a cat. They kind of have big ears.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but yeah.
yeah, but and it's weird because I'm also knee deep in all this stuff and always reading about it, and you don't hear a lot about Venus, and it is our sister planet, and so when I read about you, I was like, oh man, I couldn't wait to learn from you, and I'm wondering how when did it take a turn to Venus for you? How did it start?
Well, it all started when I was 16. I'm now 66 years old, and I found a scientist named Dr. Fred Bell, and he's got a book on my site, and he was quite famous in the day, and let's just say his great uncle invented the telephone, his father invented the automatic transmission, the alternator.
Oh, Bell, the last name Bell, the Bell, right?
The
That
Bell.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, and his father invented the automatic transmission, the alternator for Henry Ford. Fred was running around in his hemp fields, in the late 50s. The government had outlawed hemp because they didn't want, alternative fuel oil and other things like that. So then he went to work for the Air Force in charge of the top radar set. I told you about that. He was a whistleblower. And then he went to work for NASA. He became a whistleblower there. They paid him a lot of money and begged him to be in charge of the electrical safety on NASA. And he gave him the bird and continued working for Rockwell and JPL. At the time I met him, his life had taken a spiritual turn and meeting masters. And I myself have had a lot of amazing experiences in my life. So through him, I started having contact with the Pleiadian Semyasi. And I'm just going to show you, this is a very famous book, Wendell Stevens. This is the book that set the world on fire in 1979 when it came out. Now, I was getting the contact notes of Billy Meyer prior to this book coming out through Colonel Wendell Stevens.
Oh, wow.
So these are all the famous UFO contact from the Pleiades books.
Yeah.
Now, I took Wendell Stevens to Egypt back when, and there was a one-armed farmer named Billy Meyer, an amazing guy, had probably over 300 physical contacts traveling to other solar systems in the future, in the past. That's where all this started. Now, Wendell Stevens, because I was getting these contact notes, I was very respectful of him. He wrote an incredible number of books, UFO contact from Omo, Iarga, blah, blah. He's got like 10 books. The government set him up in jail, but he gave to me. Now, you can imagine this book is pretty rare and sought after, right? He gave to me book number 2.
Wow, look at that.
Billy Meyer has number 1. Wendell Stevens, within a week of his death, gave me number 1. And he was fond of me, and I didn't spend a lot of time with him, but, a lot of experiences with Fred Bell, and I don't want to go too much in the esoteric aspect, but Fred was very well connected. He had been taken up by the Pleiadians in a spaceship at Giant Rock before I met him in 1973. He and was in a Pleiades ship with 2 other people. I knew them. And then he had other experiences before. He lived actually in George Adamski's house on Nestal Road in Laguna Beach, California, and a spaceship appeared, and a woman opened the door and waved, and he goes, "Who are you?" And she telepathically said, "You'll hear of my name from a foreign land." And of course, that was Semyasi. He was contacting him. And Fred, as a scientist, proving that he wouldn't work for death and destruction with the highest integrity and moral character, was chosen because of his incredible IQ in physics always the smartest guy in the room, studying the shockwave of the atomic bomb at 15,
Wow.
became my mentor and guide. And I was having experiences then with ships following me down at 3 a.m. after I would go out of my body and have these training experiences. So it's kind of a very complex metaphysical experience. But to answer the question, I lived in Palm Springs. I was a massage therapist, a healer most of my life, and I still do that a little bit. But I was working in a very famous spa that was very Hollywood, big money, big names. I could name drop for hours, but there was another famous contactee who I could share with you about the Venusians at some point, but he invited me up to his place, and he was a trainer. And then a meeting was arranged, not formally, but we were talking about some things, and I left, and then we went down the road, and the Venusians came to me.
Wow.
5 of them in a mint condition baby blue and white Chevrolet convertible with 3 beautiful women in the back, and a famous gentleman named Don Thor, Valiant Thor's brother. Valiant Thor was adopted by the Thor family. He materialized on Venus one day. He was a created being, probably 6-dimensional.
How did you find out they were so how did, so you saw the beautiful women, and then you saw the how did you then confirm, how did you, like, what happened? Oh, is that the story you were started telling me on the phone, I think, maybe? Is that the one that, well, no, that might be a different story, but tell me how you then figured out who they were and where they were from and what was happening.
This is part of my this process. So I'm going to share a screen so you can know who I met and how I knew it. Okay. So I'm going to share the screen, and I'm going to choose a tab here, I guess, or a window. Yeah. So I'm going to share this one here real quick. So this is a famous picture taken in 1957, and I've met all 3 of these people here. This is the first one I met. His name is Don Thor, and I'll just do a slideshow. I'll play from current slides so you can see it a little better. Okay. This is a pretty famous picture. This image was taken by Air Force photographer named Augie Roberts, and he was close with Dr. Frank Strange's. He was told by someone that there would be some Venusians appearing at Howard Menger's. They didn't even tell Howard who they were, but he suspected. He was already in contact with them since the late 40s, actually. He was the famous one who started the guy before Art Bell was a guy named Long John Nebel, and I can share pictures of him with a Venusian as well at some point. But this guy is the guy that showed up who I recognized. I met Valiant Thor in 2003 with 2 women and another man at a rainbow gathering. Yeah, at Dr. Frank Strange's Inner Circle meeting in 2007. She was sitting in the back of the room. That's a great story. And then I met him, and I could tell the story of meeting of each of these. They did not admit who they are. Now, in 2007, I was well aware of Dr. Frank Strange's stuff, even at the time that I had the meeting with him. So keep these guys in mind. This is Commander Valiant Thor, 6-dimensional or higher, not Venusian, but resident there, and placed in charge of the Earth mission, the overall commander of operations of the Victor 1 space fleet. And they're monitoring the thoughts and minds of lots of people on the planet, the military who know where they are. They monitor isotopes, and that's a security. So they have several different missions here that they're working on. So basically, I went to meet this guy, Gabriel Green, and would you like to see a picture of him?
I mean, if you think
it's not relevant. Sure. Anyway, this guy's a famous contactee, and I guess I can kind of bring it up, but this is where it all began. Let me share this real quick so you can understand. This will kind of give people an understanding of the Venusians. In fact, in the beginning, it was all Venusians, okay? So everyone thinks it was started out elsewhere, but no, the Venusians are the primary contactees of Earth. And what happened was in the 50s, there was a famous guy who worked with Howard Hughes. His name was George Van Tassel, and he, along with George Adamski and many others, and this guy Bob Short was a close friend of mine. He used to call me, and he was very famous for going to sleep, and they would speak through him. It was really loud. He wouldn't know. So this is out in the 50s. This is kind of like what I do in Mount Shasta. This is the original meetings. Everyone was coming because of the Venusians.
Wow.
Okay. They were the ones that contacted Eisenhower and told him about the nuclear weapons and all this. And so
that
these
was that was the Venetians. Oh, wow.
the Venusians. Now,
Venetians, yeah.
NASA put out the big disinformation program and people bought it. This is George Adamski. This gentleman had a contact in the desert. He took the famous pictures. Is very close related to my mission. In fact, his meeting took place 67 years to the hour after the contact in the desert in 1952. Okay. Wow. So they postponed my meeting so I would be on the exact 67th anniversary. And if you saw the video of the recorded message that I was allowed to give, this is Gabriel Green. So this guy was a physicist. He ran for president with Dan Fry on the UFO. He was really into it. And he was like, I'm just going to say, he was like James Gilliland on steroids.
Oh, wow.
This guy had phenomenon. And I was guided to him by another brother, Frank Chili. Was a small, tight-knit community of contactees. And I met quite a few of them before their passing in the day. But these were what we call the ground crew, who were awakened and aware, previous lifetime experience from these other worlds, actually, and had been chosen to give the message to the people because the government of the world were controlled by, let's call it, fallen intruders or interlopers of elite families. And this whole thing is unraveling right now. So what happened was Gabriel's talking to me. So he was amazing. I'd go to his house and my car the battery would go out and I'd coast down into his driveway.
No kidding.
Okay. And then I'd walk through the door. Like one time I had a girlfriend with me and her hair stood out like you had a Tesla electrostatic. Her hair was out like this. She was like, "What's that?" And I said, "Don't worry." I said, "They're just saying hello." And Gabe was laughing. And so, they would have phenomena. So I'd be in conversations with him and all of a sudden the radio would turn on the other room. And I go, "What was that?" And he goes, "That's an agreement, Rob." And then we talk later and he had a picture of his wife that would tilt. And he goes, "That's Helen. She's saying hi." And, wow. It was just really out there. This is ET 101, where I began to understand their monitoring capabilities, the fact that they're in process in guiding me. I was having experiences with Fred Bell. This was in 1982, 84. I'd met Fred Bell in 76. Lights were following me. I was seeking a deeper gnosis. Fred wouldn't tell me nothing.
Wow.
I would go out of my body, and sometimes I'd come back and goes, "You better take an Epsom salt bath." That was a big one today. And he kept telling me, "You got to go out. You got to get out and tell your own thing." And it wasn't physical, So like, a ship would follow me down the hill. The light would be there pulsing. And I'd just say, "I just want to know." And then I'd get to my house and be outside just pulsing between me and the hill in Bluebird Canyon. And I would be crying. And finally they sent me up to him at some point. That's another story. But so he tells me, I go, "Well, what do they wear?" And all this stuff. And he goes, "Well, they really love the 50s, Rob." He goes, "Oh yeah, they were into it." He said their hair was back and, Rebel Without a Cause, Fonzie all over the place.
Yeah.
So I go, "Oh," so I'm going down, and back then we had something called a TikTok, like a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
And I pulled in this TikTok in Yucca Valley. And as I'm coming in, as I'm walking up the ramp, in come a mint condition 1957 blue and white convertible Chevy with the top down and 3 beautiful, kind of like my hair. The Venusians have like a white blonde hair, a lot of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, not all of them. That's a complex thing there. But these girls had ponytails, a pigtail, and they had white blouses and checkered skirts. Now, the checkered skirts were a little shorter than they would have seen in the 50s, not
Yeah.
quite like Austin Powers
Right.
twins, but similar, a little higher. And they put their legs over the side of the car and they hopped out and they came up behind me. There was a guy in the front, and I've seen him. I believe this is the guy I've seen many times here in Oregon, and he pops up and now and then. He's the same Venusian. I don't know his name, but I get a register and I go, that's the guy again. And I just don't, they have a way of blocking you from doing things, and they don't really want to be confronted. So this was my first, to my knowledge, recognition meeting after Gabriel Green. So in comes, and they had knee-high white socks and brown and white saddle shoes.
Oh, wow.
So this was a really cool thing. They had landed somewhere, decloaked, boom, drive up and do a little demo for me in 1984. So this was kind of like, again, this is part of my lifetime of meetings. It's always behind the scenes and left to my own intuition and discernment. So in comes Don Thor as I'm checking out. The girls are skipping down the aisles, and I was with another guy. He didn't recognize me. I said, his name's Michael Allegian. He's a spiritual guy, real contactee, has a lot of stuff. And I said, that's them, the visitors. And he goes, what? No. And I just didn't even bother. I was just focusing on Don Thor walking in, and he comes up and he gets the counter right before me. Mm-hmm. And he turns to me and he looks with that same thing where his eyebrows a little bit raised, like this. And he goes, I'll have a pack of cigarettes. And I just went like this. And he looked back at me and I just telepathically said, go ahead, light it up and smoke. I know you guys don't smoke.
Yeah. So
the guy gives him the cigarettes. And I've told this story many times, but get this. He starts pounding them on the counter. Bam, bam, bam. Upside down, Camels, unfiltered, right? Pounding them, how they used to pound the cigarettes.
You just pack them,
And then when I said that telepathically to him, he says, I'll have a pack of matches. Keep in mind, 82, you could have smoked in the store in those days.
Right.
So and I said, oh, kind of like, oh, you up the ante. I said, go ahead, light it up. Mm-hmm. So he takes the cigarettes and he has up matches and he goes like this. He was wearing a white T-shirt like Fonzie.
Yeah.
He was wearing, jeans and penny loafers with the penny in it. And he takes it and he rolls it up in his sleeve.
Wow.
So that was an amazing contact experience. The next contact experience, and I'm not sure it was Venusians, but that was another one. I'll let you take some other questions. I don't want to just keep going.
Yeah, no problem. No, that's that's good.
That's how it started.
You hear the wildest stories when people get up there, they were wearing, and then you hear about the regalia that they had on, and you're like, it's like always reminiscent of a costume, but of course it seems that way to us probably. But I hear tales of space boots and all kinds of things that are just too wild to be made up. You know what I mean? When you hear something, you're like, that sounds too crazy to be false almost, but I'm just reminded of that when I hear about Fonzie and the way that guy carried himself. It's amazing. So from there, when did it start to become, because obviously it progressed with your spiritual journey as you evolved. I'm sure that the messages evolved and as you became an easier filter and contactee, that tends to facilitate more messaging, right? And so when did it intensify, and when did you start to get, was it after you met Raymond that you started to get these, true, like, this is a message that you need to deliver, an important message. And I've read a lot of important messages that you were given in your work, and we're going to get into some of them because they have to be said and resaid, and people need to permeate. We need to permeate the consciousness of the planet with these messages, because it truly our evolution is going to depend on this being absorbed by the collective. And so I'm wondering When did it become? When did you realize your mission? I guess.
I recognized my mission very early on. For me, it was a spiritual development. Fred Bell told me to read autobiography of a yogi and some other books about the esoteric teachings of the what's called the great work or the plan of redemption of the planet, that has to do with literally an interdimensional planetary thing. It's so convoluted, it's very difficult right now.
Mm.
There's a lot of young people intuitive tuning into a lot of the what's been going on, but a lot of that stuff is over now. That's another area that's very triggering. This has to do with understanding religion and spirituality. So I was a hippie. I grew up in Laguna Beach. Laguna Beach was unique. The first surfing contest in the United States ever was in Laguna Beach. We had a huge surf culture. I grew up on the beach in a multi-million-dollar house owned by my stepfather. And Fred Bell lived vertically right up that hill from me on Bluebird, and at what we call Arch Beach Heights up there. And for me, I was a hippie. I was like, I could see everything bad. I remember I think it was 13. I read in the Los Angeles Times at the bottom of the page. It was at the very last page of the Los Angeles Times. It said, the United States Congress absolved the Ford Motor Company of treason for building the Comma truck plant in across the border. No, from Vietnam.
From Vietnam.
They were supplying right across the border. They were supplying Vietnam with the trucks that were fighting us. And they said, so I could see that
the same with Hitler.
Hitler, they were financing him. And I got I have a whole thing. We could do Meet the Hitlers, where I'll show you some crazy stuff. And I have photographic evidence from Hitler's bodyguard, Otto Skorzeny, who exposed George Bush and the family as Nazis. And that's a whole nother mind-blowing rabbit hole. I'm going to be producing that kind of stuff on my website.
I often go down that rabbit hole and try to inform people.
I'm going to share that. So basically, for me, it's a spiritual thing. And I was Timothy Leary was arrested in my hometown, the Brotherhood of Eternal Love. He was working on the Montauk experiments and decided that LSD was a good thing, and that the government control network. He was arrested. Just down the street from me, and the cops pulled him over. He went to jail. Then he was broken out by the Black Panthers.
Wow.
In a laundry truck, and ended up in Switzerland. And
holy shit.
So we also had Rajneeshis and Hare Krishnas in town. It was a spiritual epicenter of hippies and the Make Love Not War group.
Right.
And so that was my upbringing. My mother was a metaphysician, and my great-grandmother was Catherine Tiffany of the Tiffany lamps and jewelry fame. And so my mother was exposed to a lot of they started a magazine called The Printer Zeke, which was fighting the revolution. And she was close with Harry Houdini. She supported financially Ernest Holmes of religious science and the science of the mind, Mary Baker Eddy, I believe. So she was influential in the spiritualism movement of the time, of the truth that's out there in the multidimensional universe. So my mother kind of bred me into that open mind, although she couldn't accept my experiences. And so the next step of my contacts was Gabriel called me one day and said, there's a teacher being sent for you, because I was having these experiences with Fred, and I realized that there's a spirit, that this isn't about silver spaceships and spacesuits.
No, it's not.
This is about a planetary awakening of the truth of the nature of reality, the truth of God, and the truth of the individual God within you, or what is known as the Christ principle or the Christ consciousness. And I don't want to associate this in a personality cult, but a lot of things to unwrap there. But so he called me, Gabriel Green again, calls me on a pager in 1983. He goes, Rob, you got to get up here to, there's a teacher coming to you, the Ascended Master Larian. I go, and I knew who he was. He's an Ascended Master. There's 7 co-hands of the ray. I don't want to go into that more esoteric stuff, but so he's a master on the 5th ray of concrete science and knowledge. And as such, I was working in because Fred was a master
Right.
of that, not an ascended master, but a master in science and knowledge. And he said, there's a teacher being sent for you, because I was getting a little bit, I was going out of my body. Lights were following me. Fred was going like,
Yeah.
I don't know what did happen, or is it they're here? And I remember one time we were out in 1982, and we were up all night, and I had a tremendous revelation. I can't share that, more personal, esoteric, spiritual, but the spaceships came down right above the house. Boom, boom, boom. Just they jump. Boom, 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 boom. They call them beam ship because they kind of beam from one. They kind of jump on these things and stopped right above the house, and then boom, shot up 3 times. Boom, 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 boom. And I looked at him. I was about to say something, and he just telepathically said, "Don't say a word. Watch." So the ship went up and down. So I was having these experiences that were difficult for me to integrate into my life from my downloads. And my downloads were full blown out of the body. I would leave my body. I'd watch the earth. It was dark where I was, and I would see light coming up over here, and it was darker. It was just kind of very. It took a lot of years to process, to really grasp this with the knowledge I was reading from the Pleiades. Stuff. And then so basically I said, okay, I'll be there, and I hung up the phone. Now this is the 80s, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Discos and
cocaine.
Okay, so I mentioned that. So the phone rang like a fire alarm, and I'd already taken a couple steps away, and I look at the thing, and it's ringing, and I see a guy in front of his car getting out, like, pick it up, that's obnoxious. And I looked inside the store. The people at the counter, it was a really loud fire alarm. It's like they put a beam on it. It was like, it wasn't ring, it was just like really loud.
Right.
So actually previously Gabriel had played for me. Once he got a phone call, his niece was in the house, and he got a phone call, and a being spoke from outer space. It had an echo. Let me call it a space echo. Gabriel Green, is Gabriel Green there? There. Real dramatic. And so I picked up the phone, and I just heard this echo, the same echo I had heard. And they were telling me, don't go out to Cecil's or to one of the nightclubs that I could have easily gone to, pick up a girl, get an 8-ball of Coke and go out. That was the day, folks, right? So that was before we knew all the dangers and all that kind of crazy stuff. So I went up, and I'm there, and there was a guy in his bedroom who came out, kind of mysterious character, and he basically taught me a lot of things about reptilians, possessions, and the Greys. And mind you, this is in 1981 or 82. Wow. It had always been the Space Brothers, the benevolent message of peace and hope. And then all of a sudden it became about the abductions and the Greys and the fear and we're being invaded and government's in denial. It's always a big psyops on the people of the earth. So that meeting culminated after a long evening. I won't go into that too much. It's on many other interviews because his story never changes. But he showed me about possession and reptilian shape-shifting, this kind of stuff. And then he took me and Gabe and that other guy that I talked about, Michael Legion, out into the desert. We didn't know where we're going. Gabe didn't know. He didn't know, but they told him a mile and a half. We kept going down these roads, and we'd always come, a mile and 7/10 or whatever. And we'd come up to a stop sign, and he goes, well, this is the place. Gabe, you know where we're at? He goes, well, that's Bob Short's house. But he's gone. He's in New York, but he goes, okay, let's go there. And we go there. 2 minutes later, a car pulls up, and it's got another famous UFO researcher who just got back from a contact with the Pleiades, and he was staying at his house. So it got dark, and this is back in Yucca Valley, no lights. It was, the stars, you could touch them. And so he says, let's go, ready for the demonstration. We go down there, and we're sitting in a thing facing like this, and we're just sitting here waiting. And he goes up there now, look, and you just see this little twinkling blue light, and
Mm-hmm.
boom, it's sitting on the floor,
Oh
sitting
wow.
on the desert, um, you know, closer
Close,
than
right?
my
Yeah.
window behind me.
Yeah.
I have a crystalline structure there that's a part of my Pleiadian technology, but that's about where it was. I was sitting there looking at it,
Wow.
and we were all just silent. And the female voice, and I believe it was Semyasi. I was eventually beamed aboard their mothership in 1989
Wow.
with Fred Bell physically, and came down at 6 a.m. That's another story. But all this time, to my outer knowledge, I'm not involved in the conversation until this was actually my first conversation that I can recognize. I didn't speak to Don Thor at that time, but um, so she said, "Now you know, Rob." And this is what I had been saying all the time to the lights that were following me and pulsing outside my window.
Right.
Waves of love. I'd be crying like a baby.
Right.
I want to know the truth. Why can't you just talk to me? What's going down? So I was getting a little unstable. I was
Yeah.
questioning Fred at some point. I said, "You know more than you do. Why can't you tell me?" And I said, "You're sworn to secrecy." And he just nodded his head and he looked down like, "Sorry, I'm not allowed to tell you."
Yeah.
And I found out later it's for my own safety. There was a lot of stuff going on with the silence group, and they will kill people. A lot of that's pretty standard for them, and
Mm-hmm.
keeping this great spiritual knowledge from us.
Yeah.
So the conversation went something like this. She said, "Now you know." I said, "Well, this is beautiful." I said, "I guess that means we can have the hippie, beautiful nature with high technology." She said, "Yes, absolutely." And I was kind of crying. I said, "This is wonderful." And there's a couple other things in there, a little personal, but and then I said, "Well, how can I help?" And she says, "You can help because you're having this experience. You can share this experience, and they'll know by the way you tell it that you're telling the truth."
Mm-hmm.
And so that wasn't true.
She
I
wasn't
told my
interested.
mom and my sister, and they go, "Yeah, go ahead, take some more mushrooms and hang out at
Yeah.
Fred's house or something," right? So basically, um, I said, I got to the point, and I said, I was kind of crying through my tears, and I said, "Well, why don't you come out? I want to. Why don't you meet us?" And she
Yeah.
started laughing. And I was laughing, and so I'm laughing through my tears. I go, "What's so funny?" In
Right.
my mind, I wasn't speaking it. I said, "What's so funny?" In my mind. And she says, "You'd think you're the Messiah." And I kind of went like, "What?"
Yeah.
And it was a joke, I guess. But um, the military guy that was next to me, he was the guy that was sent to me. He was working. He had broken his mind control in Arkansas. He was on a government alien base, and
Oh
he
wow.
remembered that he was going up and sitting in the capsule with the little grays while they would abduct a woman, implant them with an alien baby, and take it out 3 months later. This is a
Wow.
transhumanist agenda. This is a takeover. Many people think alien babies are cool, and I think on a certain level, perhaps some of them are. But it was
The whole
definitely,
hybrid craze you're talking about, right?
yeah, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, that's a good thing." This
Yeah.
was done against people's will. Now, I will say that there are certain races that have agreements with
Right.
their own incarnations who are taking up to take some DNA, but this was a military abduction base, and this was definitely part of the
Yeah.
changing humanity against their will. It's been done for millions and millions of years. It's another
Yeah.
story that I'm well versed in, actually, with 66 years of contact
Mm-hmm.
experience, which no one gets it. They think I'm crazy, but it's okay. I don't really care at this point. I
Right.
know the message that I have is one of love, hope, peace, justice, and the transformation of the earth. So,
Yeah.
and I'll finish this up real quick here. So he says, "Have you seen enough?" And I said, "Yeah." And I knew it was a her. I said, "She's not coming out." He said, "I know." And so get this, and this I'm kind of proud of this moment. It showed me that I was not fascinated in the spaceship. Was interested in spiritual knowledge, and
Right.
what this contact was given to me for was because I was becoming a little, with all of this phenomenon. Was I going crazy? I kind of knew I wasn't, but because I'd
Yeah.
seen so many things, and Fred's credentials were insane. His knowledge was incredible. I saw physicists come up and
Yeah.
try try and disrespect him, and he put them in their place. They would ask a couple questions. He would go, boom. They go, They asked something. Then you could see they were thinking. Goes, then he asked them a question, and they just go, I don't know.
Right.
Boom, take their seat.
Right.
So it was awesome. He was developing the interstellar time conversion process of a spaceship, and we literally built the beginnings of a spaceship in his backyard. So there was a lot
Wow.
of technologies and stuff that were given to him that he was silenced eventually. So to make this really long story, I'll cut it here. I walked away, and Michael Legion goes, "Where are you going? The ship's not here." I turned my back on the spaceship.
Yeah.
And Gabe was over there, and I said, "She's not coming out." And I watched it just disappeared. They move
Right.
so fast.
Right.
It's there. You see a little bit of a movement. It's all you grasp, and it's completely gone.
Gone. Yeah.
So that was what led me into the spiritual realization, to answer the original question, of the importance of understanding our multidimensional and the true history of the earth. Everything has been hidden. Everything we've been taught and trained is a lie. And that's because the bad guys literally own the planet.
Yep.
And I'm just going to go back to Christ when he was in the desert. Satan came and said, "Hey, you're raising people from the dead. You got quite a name for yourself. Worship me. I can give you everything. I own the world." And he said, "Get away."
Mm-hmm.
So he proved his love for humanity by dying on the cross, and he proved his divinity by his resurrection. And that's close to the Venusian mission. This is not about religious dogma. This is about the truth of the power of love, and that we're all brothers and sisters. And if we do unto others as we would have done unto us, the world would be a better place. That's the Venusian mission.
I love that mission. I'm sure that's why I'm drawn to it, and why we're having this discussion as we are. I was struck by what I was reading in your Q&A with the Venetians, and this, it's fascinating to me that the Venusians have this. It's Venusians, right? I don't want to keep saying
Venusians, yeah, not Venetian.
Not Venetian. No, not from Italy. No, not the Italians. The Venusians that they have.
Forget about it.
That's a different podcast. That they have this hierarchy, and that there is this structure to the way that they are presenting information, the way that they introduce themselves, and the way that they are titled, so to speak. And that's very clear. If you read everything about your work, that's the kind of the first thing that people are going to notice, is that there seems to be this military structure to the way that they are ordered, which is different. Now, you do hear sometimes, about commanders from the Pleiades. But it's always pretty straightforward and simple. There's not usually a hierarchy the way that you see with the Venusians. And
it's all hierarchy everywhere. All hierarchy.
It is everywhere, right? It's just usually not so pronounced to humans, I bet. Yeah.
We're in the third dimensional entropic universe. So we're looking from the valley. We're already immortal spiritual beings. We are already Christ. All we have to do is to claim it through our free will. And the system has been rigged. We're born underwater in mud, and outside is a glass pyramid, and got oil on it. How are you getting out? It's difficult to get this understanding, because the fallen ones who own the earth created the system. They know our DNA and all this stuff. But hierarchy, let me put it this way, it's dimensionality of frequency. And even the fallen beings that are in charge, that were in charge, I'll say, that have misled mankind, whose time is over. We are about ready in this next year to bust loose with the divine intervention. the Wizard of Oz of the bad guy behind the scene has been removed for the most part. The behind the scenes guys, those with the higher technology, extra dimensionals who have subjugated mankind and had a plot to turn us into a battery of dark energy to, rule the physical light system, the light world. So very complex. I don't go too deep into that, but the hierarchy involves in frequency. So you have, let's look at the pyramids that I have, and I make them. They're on my website. Maybe I'll share that in a minute. But
Cool.
pyramid. Think of Pink Floyd. How I wish. I wish. A light hits this, and you get 7 levels of energy.
Right.
So
like the
pyramid
too, right?
The base divided by the height reaches a number of pi. That's a number that progresses to infinity. You can never make a perfect circle on the physical plane. It always is a spiral. It goes inside itself. Mm-hmm. So that's the illusion, or what we call Maya, in the physical plane. Now, I work with a top level physicist who's working in time travel with the Pleiadians. I'm not a mathematician, but I understand string and wave theory and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of the technologies that the Pleiadians gave us, this jewelry piece and all this stuff, is based on knowledge of the pyramid. So you have 7 planes of existence: the physical plane, which is the 3rd dimension. You have the astral plane, which would be considered the 5th dimension. That's not the highest. But we're going to the 5th dimension, big deal. Then you have the mental plane, okay, and then you have what's called the intuitional plane, and then that would be like the 6th dimension, the 6th dimension, and then you have the causal plane, and then you have the atmic plane, or the plane of soul, and then you have the logoic plane. And all of those planes and all those dimensions and all those selves are within you. And in Dr. Frell's book, he explains it's like a Russian shell game that you have inside the electron on the physical plane. There are 49 subatomic particles called the anu inside that are of the astral plane. And when you're on the astral plane, if you were looking their atoms and electrons, you would see within there 49 of the mental plane. And so everything is all happening at once in all time and space. It's
what it reminds me of? When you study brain waves, and if you're watching like someone who's in a meditation and you see the brain goes from this low beta, and then they drop into the meditation, and you start to see the coherence come, and then you start to see them drop into theta, but what you notice about the brainwaves is that you can't get to theta and then lower and then back up if you want to get it into a gamma brainwave state. You have to go through all the, they're all connected, right? You can't, it's not like you're jumping. They're all kind of there, but you just enter into the dominant part of when you get up into gamma, but to drop down into theta, which is the dreamwave, you have to go through beta and then back up. So it just reminds me, it's so much like, and it reminds me of the Maya, the pyramid. It's all connected, and that's why connected. we have intuition. We're plugged into all these things all the time. It's just most people are not taught, and that's a great injustice to this race. To this humanity, that that we're not taught these things. How can we develop spiritually when we're taught we live in a material world? It's such a grave injustice. It's part of the problem that we're in right now, I think. That's
what shows like yours and people who are seeking the truth are going to find out. Everyone has to use discernment. So let me go a little bit into the hierarchy aspect. Other worlds and other systems, we have beings from physical planets that traverse time and space. Okay, they're 4th dimensional worlds, like the Semyasi and the Pleiadians have a 4th dimensional world. They're way in advance of us technologically. The Pleiades, which is actually within the Taurus cloud, there's only 7 visible stars, but that Taurus cloud has over 250 stars, including Aldebaran, and they got an orange dwarf planet, all these things, and they all have different agendas. There's a lot of contactees and their followers, unfortunately, taking the side. My contactee that I follow is the best.
Right.
That person's a liar. And if the contactee starts talking about other contactees as being false, they're making a big rookie mistake. I'm
Right.
not going to mention any names. There's quite a few out there doing that because you've never walked a mile on your own things and you have your own perceptions.
That's right, and their own
I,
experiences, and they're not going to they're not going to match up. This is the same reason when we get in trouble with religions. It's like, no, no,
yep.
actually, you're wrong. Your God couldn't have looked like that because he looked like this for me. Oh, okay, this is where we run into problems over and over. This.
Yeah, it's sad. So there's different agendas. There's thousands, if not millions, of federations. Our galaxy is 110,000 miles, light years across. Light years. In the center is a black hole. It's called the pleroma or the grand central sun. It's just, there's a light that's in there. That's coming off the black hole, but they call that the pleroma, and who knows where that goes. So it's important that we don't get too complicated or go out there into cosmology. But in our quadrant of the galaxy, we look in, and at the center from us would be the Pleiades Taurus cloud. There are good and bad in there. There's a whole history. Some are not from there. And so they have this reality of the different agendas. So they know that the universe is like a giant being, okay? And we're all family in here. And many of them recognize that there was something going on here in our world that was causing rift in the time-space continuum, literally. So it attracted a lot of attention to this planet. And for many, we were far out there that didn't involve, but a lot of information went out. And the councils recently have gotten really strongly aligned to clean up the situation. The Earth is at the edge of the galaxy. It's having problems, and this was seen as the nexus point for a very negative thing that was happening. Right. So they all became aligned to clean up the situation, and it's been happening behind the scenes, hidden to mankind, military actions, and there is various councils. Mm-hmm. They have years, many millions of years. I won't even go into how many and who knows. Right. But they were hybridizing races and having wars over genetics. Wow. And these are some of the fifth and sixth dimensional beings that aren't physical, because they would create a planet and a race, and then they would leave that dimension and come down and have an experience in the physical body. Because you can grow in your ascension to higher worlds by serving on the lower dimensions. Right. So why would anyone want to come here? Because they can help this planet go through this difficult time. And so there's various groups. They all have different ideas. And I talked to the security chief alone. I said, why don't you just take us all up? I mean, I'm sick and tired of so-and-so saying this person's fake. I know they're real. I have lots of things, and I don't rush to judgment. I have a lot of discernment with 66 years of experience, and I can counteract. I can pause and wait and know that both are right, but obviously some of them have different perceptions. And he said, look, each federation has an agenda. Each planet in that federation has an agenda, and the individual talking to an Earth human has an agenda, and the Earth human has their apperceptions. That's right. So even a physical
free will. It's a hell of a thing. It's a great thing, but it makes things complicated. Nuanced.
They do have rules of engagement of what they're allowed to do and not do. Yeah. And mostly the ones that don't look like us are mostly here for scientific purposes and behind the scenes. Occasionally they get seen. They're slowly leaking out the bizarre looking other aspects of different races that freak people out and would cause you to believe that they're, have hostile intentions. And some of them do. But for the most part, we're in a big stage of cleanup. So I'll just say that everything is under the command of God, and that's the supreme infinite intelligence, without name and form, beyond all name and form, yet within all name and form, in all dimensions, in all times and spaces, and anything that you can possibly imagine already is, was, and will be. That's what Alex Collier, a good friend of mine, we have the same view. We call it the isness. And another very famous contactee who's a very close friend of mine and who we are really resonant is a guy named J.J. Hurtak. and
Oh, I
he's
know
the guy.
JJ's coming on my show next week.
Wow.
I
Will you
love
tell
him and Desiree. I'm friends with them. Every time I see them, we talk. And finally, I said, "Are you guys free in December?" And they said, "Yeah." So they're coming on. They're going to come on next week. I love doctors JJ and
do you
Desiree.
have his phone number?
Well, no, I can check my emails. Maybe it's in there.
It's
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, I'm going to reach out to him too. I just saw him in Las Vegas. Anyway, so
yeah,
but him and I really have a lot of things. He's a messianic Jew. He understands the Christ principle beyond
hmm
the idea of this religious
right.
deception. So that's just for me the spiritual nature and understanding that there's a dimensional hierarchy, and that they're all 90%, 99.9% are all intending for us to move forward in a positive way. They
Yeah,
have different views in terms of intervention. The
yeah.
Galactic Confederation of Light of our system, and I'll explain this hierarchy to you,
Okay.
is comprised of 601 worlds and 51 solar systems.
Wow.
Includes Arcturus, Sirius A and B, Alpha Centauri A and B, Earth, Wolf 30. There's 651 solar systems. I don't know all the names, but um, there is the Queen of Venus is based on her lifetimes of service. This is not genetic, and they have a specific aspect of their culture that's related to the bees. They
Yeah.
were unwillingly, without their permission, hybridized with the bees. They're not insectoid. They look just like us, and it's a complex subject. But the Queen of Venus is established, and her position comes up every 3 years for renewal. She was established. The current queen in 2012 was established, and because of her long lifetime of association and being on the earth, she's very understands the world situation. I believe her lifetimes of service to humanity have given her that position. And that's who I speak with through my friend Raymond Keller, who she took him to Venus before she became the queen. That's all chronicled in his books. But she's the head of the Venus hierarchy, and they have a region of Venus who is an ascended master who, if there's any difficulties or questions, he says something and they pretty much follow that. Now, we have a solar council, and in the third and fourth dimension, the 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 head of the solar council is the Queen of Venus.
Hmm.
And because of the Earth's importance at this point in time, she's also the would call it the head, or it's a council. It's not, they're all working towards love and light, and establishing the protocols, and without violating human free will
Right.
in the transference to the new earth. So there's specific rules on that. But she's the head of that confederation. So that's a pretty high level of contact.
Yeah.
And they keep a lot of things from me that I'm not supposed to know. I'm focusing on the message of hope and peace, and to share with people everything you're hearing about the bad guys is pretty much done. We're going to see some huge changes. A lot of announcements will be made, and mainstream media is going to have to drop the curtain. And a lot of people that are dead and being played by robots or people in rubber wearing masks will be revealed very soon. And, I'm going to say Trump is one of them.
Oh,
so
yeah,
it's going to trigger a lot of people, but you'll find out soon enough.
Is he
And
is he a robot, or is he
they got a bunch of them.
I'm sure.
They probably had clones for a while, and then they have. They
it
definitely
would
have
only
robots.
make sense.
I'll show you the robot one if you want to ask some questions in the meantime, or just comment on stuff.
Yeah, I have some questions. It's because when I look out and I see when I study the planet Mars and study the planet Venus, it's like I'm always struck by it's clear they're so close to Earth, both those planets, and Mars. You can literally see the scars on the topography of the planet, and I'm like, how do people see Mars and not know that this was once an inhabited land? And also Venus. When they got the satellites to Venus, they said, wow, they thought it was going to be much more like Earth than it is. Obviously the it's very hot. We know about the clouds, and the temperature, and so
Not as
I'm
hot
one
as you think.
not no that so
NASA's
that's
live.
one of that there's a surprise. NASA's lying. So
Never a
I
straight answer is what Fred Bell
no I
told
know
me
that
in
Mike
1973 when I met him. I said, "You worked at
I'm
NASA?" And he
sure
goes, "Yeah, not a straight A, not a,
a single straight answer, I bet. Yeah.
yeah, not a
So
straight answer."
can you maybe you can, and this is total my curiosity, maybe it's a little off the subject, but so when Raymond was in Venus, it was he in the clouds? Because I was like, there's probably life on Venus right now. It's just in the clouds. You know what I mean? Why would you think it has to be on the ground just because we live on the ground? It was just like a thought that I've had so often. And
They
also,
do have floating cities. We're going to have them. It's going to be a big part of the new Earth. We already have a floating city above the Gobi Desert. That's called Shambhala the Greater. Shambhala the Lesser used to be in the Himalayas, but due to the Earth changes coming, it's been moved to South America. And there's a labyrinth connected down there around the area beneath the mountain Sahama in Bolivia and beneath Lake Titicaca the Minor. There's a conclave there. And all around the earth are inner earth civilizations from our
yeah,
ancient history who are there. And they're coming forward now. Michael Sala's work with a guy named
yeah,
JP. They're disclosing the secret places of the lion where the ancient repositories are kept. In this book series, the Transylvania Sunrise series,
oh, cool.
they talk about the inner earth and the interdimensionality. But I'll just say that a lot of things are coming forward on that level.
I love everything I wrote, and I love how frank they are about the great veil that's been, and this is definitely part of my mission, and I'm outspoken about it, and the truth can be upsetting to people,
To
but
say the least, right?
to put it mildly, but some of us feel. Now, look, I'm not saying that you need to be slapping people in the face with the truth, but the truth does need to come out, and people with integrity are going to bring it out, whether some other people are ready to hear it or not, because that's the only way this world is going to, reach a kind of the harmony and the balance and the heaven that the religions have convinced people is, far off in another dimension. I believe it can be right here, and that it was always supposed to be right here, but we've been bamboozled into this, crazy way of material nonsense thinking. So,
Absolutely.
I really love the answers that the Venusians give you, and everything that I've read and seen and heard. But I would love for you to show your website and some of your things.
Well, why don't you just share real quick here? This is my website. And so, like, this is my summer conference. I'd like to introduce people to this. This is my big event every year, the largest spiritual gathering, or actually of any gathering that I know in Mount Shasta for the last 10 years. I have 250 to 400 people at my
Nice.
conference. And when you click on that banner on the homepage, it takes you to a whole nother page and you can learn about it. And so I talk about it in there. So the other thing I wanted to share with you here is I want to go back to the main site real quick, but I have a free newsletter. You can sign up and you can
Oh,
get
cool.
information, and you can get notices and discounts. And then I also have an inner circle where you get the copy of the book with all the recordings and all the messages in one spot, as well as a bunch of other stuff. But I wanted to show you Raymond's books, because this brother, and I sell his books. The money goes to him for the most part. I get a small fee, but this is not, it's not really I won't say it's a big money maker
Yeah.
for me, but I'm going to show the books here. And there's a lot of other technologies. You can check this out here.
Cool.
The Pleiadians taught us about pyramids and lasers and sound and light and color and all this. So we have a credible set, 3 books for 50.
Nice.
any 6 books for 120, any 9 books for 150 plus shipping. This is about his time travel experience. This is the Venus Rising book. The first book is
Cool.
where did it go? This one. So the Venus Rising book is incredible. This book was written by a woman from Venus, and I guess I would like to just encourage people to get this Fred Bell's book. This is about Valiant Thor's meeting. This is about the government's cover up. This will tell you all the lies that make you think Venus is a hot, steaming
Cool. Okay.
cauldron. I mean, if it is, why did they send more satellites there than anywhere else on the planet, right? And the solar system, most of them went to Venus. They're cloaked, like in the Dark Side of the Moon, the opening of Transformers, something just swallowed the satellite. That's happened on Venus numerous times. And they are our guardian. They own the moon. The Venusians are guardians, and the Earth, it's getting ready to be transferred to Earth when we join the Galactic Federation. Right. I think that's farther away than some people might wish or dream, but mankind has to show that he's ready
to be responsible. To
have peace on Earth, and to not stop killing other life on the planet with all of our technology, stop polluting the planet, and stop and creating a more equal society. So I'm gonna I better take this out here, and I'm gonna stop my share real quick. I'm gonna show you the 2 Venusians. This is fun. We'll show you they like to wear a red beret when they're on an official message. Okay. So I'm gonna share this final image here, and so thepromiserevealed.net, folks, check it out, and then you can look at the products. I have an incredible special on the tickets right now. You get 5 days camping and a 4-day event, and all the speakers. There's one in particular quite famous that I can't talk about. They don't want to be known until sooner, but this is a great image here. Can you see those 2 women?
Yes.
Okay. The one on the left is a blonde woman born in 1902 in the United States. Her name is Annabelle Krebs, and she was
really well.
Well, she served with this woman in India in a place called Hardwar, Lakshman Jula, and Rishikesh, very close cities in the high Himalayan mountains, or the gateway to the upper mountains there, where the masters have their esoteric teachings, and the monks are, hundreds of years old. So this woman on the right first was serving in India, and in 1927, she was acting as a guide for the East India Company. That's kind of like the CIA of the day. They were the ones that started the heroin addiction in China, and they were the ones that destroyed China so they could get the gunpowder, and the colonialistic conquer and rule. So she was leading some major military guy in charge back down after a 2-week journey while they were up there, and they came upon a beggar on the road. And the beggar said, oh, please help me. I'm hurt. I can't move, and I need some food and water. And she goes, oh, we must stop and help this man. He goes, we're not stopping. You can hand him some water and give him some food, but we are going. She goes, we have to help him. He can't walk, and they said, well, if you help him, we're not paying you. So she said, okay. And she helped this guy, nursed him down. And they got to the bottom after 3 days. He said, you have great compassion. And he dematerialized them, and they went to Venus. She became a dual citizen, went back to the Earth in service after becoming a dual citizen on Venus. And the woman on the left, was really a humanitarian, and she was always helping the homeless and stuff. And she decided that she would go into the Andhra Pradesh area in the Himalayas around Lakshman Jula and Hardwar and all that, to help the people during the Great Depression.
Hmm.
in the 30s. So she goes over, in her late 20s, and she works alongside this woman. Now, let's fast forward to 2000, and notice the red beret. Notice these are B pens. These are solid gold B pendants, and
Hmm.
these women came to visit Cosmic Ray after he wrote these two books. The
Hmm.
Venusians call him the Venusian historian, and he had a previous lifetime. That's a pretty long story. There's another picture of me and the commander, but they wouldn't. I wasn't allowed to share that because someone found out who she was. So let's go forward a little bit, and I'll show you. So these two women came down to visit Cosmic Ray, and one last time, let's look at the light in their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
They knew they were being photographed. And let's see, there's a picture of the security chief too, but I don't share. His face can't be shown, but it's not a picture of his face, but I do sometimes share it. So this is the woman. She was born on Venus. So there's a lot to unravel in terms of the technology. So they do talk about that willing to help us in life extension. And this is just around the corner.
Yeah.
Just around the corner. So to go back to what you said before, there's going to be a lot of revelations that are going to be hard for people to swallow, but it must be done because of the hydrogen cloud and solar warming, not global warming, but solar warming.
Mm-hmm.
There's oxygen now on Pluto because the ice caps are melting.
Wow.
We're going through a hydrogen cloud. It's a natural phenomenon. The temperature between the outer atmosphere of the Earth and the Moon all the way out to Venus? What is space temperature? I think I told you this.
I forget. Did you tell me?
Absolute zero.
Absolute zero.
Guess what it is now?
Like 1?
No, like 10,000 degrees.
Wow.
So we're seeing the weather changes, and this is affecting our outer ionosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what do you think happens with the solar flare? That is a natural occurrence. I know the governments are trying to do some things, but the sun's its own life.
Yeah.
It's turbocharging it.
I mean, I just don't understand how people talk about climate without mentioning the sun. How do you measure the temperature of the Earth and no one is factoring in the sun? You know what I mean? Like to me, that's the biggest indication that something is amiss with the whole climate change agenda that's being pushed.
The agenda is a control agenda to limit what you do, to make you be an electric car. There will only be a few of. They're running out of lithium. The cars are catching on fire. It's not the way to go. It's not going to happen. And despite what they say, the governments are going broke on December 15th. And by January 1st, there will be no more government, I hope. It's going to revert to the people. The money is in control of the good guys, and enough people are dying that even the deep state of China, everyone was going to turn the money of the world over to China, and we were going to go into a communist regime where organ harvesting, was just. Let's not talk about the negativity because it's not going to happen. They're promoting it, the digital currency, which they would control. We can have a digital currency under the alpha system, but right now there's people in the world that have no access to electricity or ATMs or credit cards. It's ridiculous.
No.
So it's not going to happen. There is a plan being orchestrated by many much higher level contactees than myself who do not have a position in the public. They're working in military, in finance, in artists, in education, in all aspects of society. They are working behind the scenes and they're working invisibly. I think they come in sometimes when I'm writing and they're telepathically helping me out. I have to have the knowledge to put it together, but some of my introductions to Raymond books are definitely guided by the hierarchy of light. And the probably one of the best ones is the Gospel of Thomas that my friend wrote, that they I was allowed to write about how how that gospel was written through a technology of the Akashic records,
Mhm.
and Raymond's books were garnered from that. So
Awesome.
anyway, thank you for letting me share a little
Oh,
bit
you're
of
welcome, my
commercial.
friend. Thank you for sharing. Look, there's so many things to unpack. So we're just gonna have to have a series of talks because
Love
there's
it.
so many things that we can dive into. And I'm so grateful for you for your time, for sharing your vast knowledge. And I know we've only we could barely say we scratched the surface because I know how much is there. And but I want to give you a chance before we sign off to share a message with everyone who stayed with us so far.
Oh,
That you feel they whatever you feel like that they may need to hear right now. Something of either a mantra or a gift to the people who have stayed with us that they could take with them into their lives before we go.
well, as a messenger, I've kind of shared my message is to explain about the externalization of the reality of life within the earth and those beings that we are affecting and why they've been afraid to come out, and that stuff. And then of course the message of the Venusians and their mission is to protect the earth from herself to a certain extent. They also have other intentions to help us develop the latent powers within us and to become aware of the technologies that the elites are controlling us with so that we can just ignore them. And I want to say you can ignore them right now.
Mhm.
And we're going to hear very soon. I wouldn't pay your taxes early, anyone, because I feel by next year, we're all paying them now, but I feel by next year, everything's going to revert to a sales tax. I think that we're very close to things happening.
Listen, brother, I'm so grateful for your time and your wisdom. I appreciate you so much. This meeting was definitely meant to happen. I look forward to doing it again. We'll do it again soon, and I'll be in touch. And thank you for sharing so much with me. But we still have much to talk about, so I'll be in touch, and we're going to do it again soon.
Hey, all right. I want to thank you very much. And give my phone number to JJ.
Okay,
Um, and just tell him Rob wants you to call him. And thank you very much. And I send him much love. Okay.
I will. I will make sure to relay the message. All right, brother.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so
Bye.
much. You take care. Bye bye.